Hey everybody, it's me Stacy here at Scrapbooking Made Simple, and it's time for our next Saturday with Stacy YouTube class number 315. Now, you're spending Friday night with me. It is actually a little after 8 p.m. Friday evening, and this YouTube is supposed to launch tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. We'll see. I have just come back from visiting Mr. SMS in the hospital, and so I'm really late getting to this. But what that means is that it's just us. Everybody's gone for the day. The shop is closed. So we're spending my Friday night together. I'll let you know I'm a cheap date. I don't drink. I don't do it. I'm happy with soup and salad. So if we were going out, you'd find I'm a very, very cheap date on a Friday night. Now, I don't have winner for you today, and that's because it was our anniversary sale last week, YouTube number 314. And that's the anniversary sale of the YouTube where we give away 100 prizes. 100 of them. And so we are in the process of pulling all 100 winners, and there will be a separate YouTube, which is quite comical, where you get to watch me try to pronunciate all of the 100 names. It's a YouTube all on its own. So no winner chicken dinner today, but I will try to get that YouTube done by YouTube number 316. Now, like I said, I just came back from visiting Mr. SMS in the hospital. Tuesday is a big day for us. They evaluate every Tuesday and they decide whether he gets to stay or he has to go. I also found out today that we do not have insurance for durable medical equipment. So the hospital bed that they told me he was going to need, we'll have to rent or buy, and the wheelchair we'll have to rent or buy, and all of the things that will be required for him to come home. Now, I don't want him home anytime soon, not because I don't want him to home, because I desperately do, but the rehabilitation is so important, and his left side neglect is really severe. So the longer he can get inpatient rehabilitation, every hour, every minute of it is so very important. So we hope that come Tuesday we get the good news that he's been extended another week, and then we hold our breath until the following Tuesday. It's the craziest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And there has been a few emails from those of you out there that are in this profession who have sage advice for me, and I will be calling you to ask you about your advice on keeping him in rehab for as long as possible, as opposed to having to hire somebody for in-home care. No, we're trying to avoid that as much as possible. Anyway, he's in as best of spirits as you can imagine. I don't know if it's the stroke or the surgery or all of it combined, but his emotions are just all over the place. And it's, so we sit there and we together, and then we laugh together, and then we together. I'm telling you. I don't know if he found his softer side or what's going on, but heaven forbid you put us in front of a Hallmark, movie. We'll need boxes and boxes and boxes of tissue, where before he would have just said, really? So again, please keep us in your thoughts and in your prayers, and send out positive best wishes and all the positive energy that you can muster up. We are by no means out of the woods, and in fact they say we are just starting our very long journey through this. But I just want the medical insurance company to keep him in there, because he is giving you 110% every day to do the very best that he can. So motivation has to count for something, right? When you've got a patient in there who's ready, willing, and trying to be able, then keep him. Anyway, today I've got some exclusives for you from Stampendous and from Hero Arts. I'm going to be playing with stamps and embossing powders. No die cutting today, but maybe some information that you didn't know before. Maybe a way to use some product you already have in your crafty arsenal there at home. And maybe a chance to broaden your horizons just a little bit without breaking the bank. All right, so between the Hero Arts and the Stampendous, I'm looking at everything on the table, I think that we're going to have a really great time. I'm going to start pretty simple, and I'm going to start talking pigment inks with you. And what is a pigment ink, and what do you do with a pigment ink? Because there's so many different types of inks on the market. Everything from a chalk base to a dye based to a permanent to a pigment to a hybrid. And the inks that I have for you today from Hero Arts are exclusive to us, meaning you can't get them anywhere else. They brought them back just for Scrapbooking Made Simple. And so I want to give you an understanding of, if you have pigment inks at home, why you have them. If you don't have them, why you may want them, or you say, no, I don't need these at all. And then we're going to move into Stampendous stamps and the exclusive stamp sets that they have for us. And I think that when you see how we use them, no coloring, I'm not going to be doing any coloring either today. I think you see how we're using the stamps and I've got embossing powder and pigment inks with paper that you might just have as scraps. You might go, At least I hope you go, I can do that. I've got that already. I never thought of doing that before. So that's the goal for today. I'm going to tilt on down. We're going to get started. And again, all of my love to you for your cards, your well wishes, your donations to our GoFundMe page. We're hoping to eventually hit our target amount, because that's what I'm being told it may take to get him all the way through recovery. Okay, anyway, let's get back to pretty and crafty. Squirrel. All right, I'm going to tilt down. I'm going to show you the in-store free make and take, and then we're going to get started. It is good to see you, even if it is 8:20 on a Friday night, and this is supposed to be loaded by 8 a.m. Saturday morning. We'll see. Okay, down I go. Bye, everybody. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom. Well, you know what? I'm going to put my glasses on first so I can see if I'm zooming on in. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Down, down, down. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Maybe just a hair bit tighter. Zoom, zoom, zoom. And if I have to back it up, I will. All right. This is one of the in-store make and takes that we are doing downstairs. Super pretty. And really easy. Look at how beautiful that stamp set is. And do you see what kind of paper it's on? It's pretty plain paper, but look at how gorgeous that is. Yep, I'm going to show you what we did to get that done. But here we have another one. Again, super pretty. And do you see the sentiment? How did we get the sentiment stamped on there? Because it is stamped, because the stamp set comes with a sentiment. All right, well, let me show you how we were able to do this. Now, as I said, the first thing I want to start with is inks. And I'm going to grab a piece of white paper that has embossing powder all over it. And I have got some inks. These are a dye-based ink. I've got some Hero Hues with me. I've got some Memento with me. If you Stampin' Up! As a dye-based ink, it's going to work about the same. Or your Lawn Fawn. And dye-based inks are inks that dry really fast and that leave the color. It kind of absorbs right into the paper. Right into the paper. So a couple different colors of dye-based ink. And they're, for the most part, already dry. almost, pretty close. Within a minute, they'll be completely dry, actually less than that, because you can see they're not moving around. And that's what a dye-based ink does. It's an ink that absorbs quickly into paper, which makes it awesome for stamping with because it's not just sitting on top. It's absorbing into that paper, allowing you to move on with your project. Most folks who stamp with a dye-based ink. Now, the good thing about a dye-based ink is that it dries pretty much like that. And the colors, there's hundreds of colors of dye-based inks because there's so many companies that manufacture them. The bad thing about a dye-based ink is that on a dark color, you don't get too much. I think it's time to re-ink that one. So, same inks, black paper, you really kind of miss out. It does not hold the color. Why? Because that color is absorbing into the black. It's absorbing into the black, and that black takes all of that color away because it's darker than anything that we're putting here. So dye-based inks generally work best on your lighter color papers and not your darker colored papers. That's where a pigment ink comes in, a pigment-based ink comes in. Now I'm gonna forewarn you, these are not how they're gonna come to you. These are the prototypes. If you can believe it, the ink is literally on an airplane right now. And it's being picked up after this YouTube, and then we'll drive it back to the shop tonight and price it for tomorrow. So don't worry that you think you're gonna get these oh so lovely, here let me be my Vanna White, oh so lovely packaging. No, these are Hero Arts. They're a Hero Arts ink. It's a pigment-based ink, and it'll be packaged absolutely gorgeous. Now, being that it's a pigment-based ink, it acts differently than your dye-based ink. So let's put a little bit there. And let's use a little bit of yellow maybe. And maybe a little bit of pink. And maybe a little bit of peach. All right, so those are the 4 colors I used. Pink, yellow, okay, those are my colors. So the first thing that you're gonna notice is that these are pastel colors. They're very, well, they're not very light, but they are lighter. The second thing you might notice is as I move this in the camera, you might see that it's still wet. Can you see that reflection coming off of it saying that, oh, look at that sheen and shine? That means it's still wet. Pigment-based ink does not dry as fast as a dye-based ink. They're still a little wet. Now this one is getting there, it's almost dry, and the yellow is really almost dry. So it doesn't take forever, but it does take longer than a dye-based ink. And the 6 colors that we have from Hero Arts today are more pastel, and then we have a white, which is their unicorn ink. I think where you'll see the biggest difference is in the black. So let me start with some blue. And then let's do some yellow. And then let's do some pink. And then let's do some peach. So you can clearly see, well, there, how about that way? That way they're together. You can clearly see that on the darker paper, a pigment-based ink doesn't seep in. It stands on top of. It doesn't absorb in the way a dye-based ink would, it actually sits on top of the paper and it dries on top of the paper as opposed to sinking in, which is why it doesn't disappear on the black. Now again, it's wet. It's more wet than a typical dye-based ink, and it will need to dry. You can see that I'm able to move it with my fingers. So now that one's almost dry. But that property of not drying super fast is a benefit. It is, and I'm going to show you that benefit. So when you're talking about a dye-based ink, you're talking about using it on something that is a light surface, where that ink is going to be able to be visible to you. With a pigment-based ink, you can use that on a light surface, and you can use it on a dark surface. Doesn't matter which, you'll still get the color. But if you're doing anything on, a darker color paper, it doesn't have to be black, a darker colored paper, you're going to want to use a pigment-based ink. Most pigment-based inks out on the market right now are metallic colors. So golds and silvers and coppers and things of that nature. Hero Arts brought back the 6 colors that we have. And like I said, don't worry, they're not coming packaged this way, but we've got pink and peach and blue and yellow and green and mint. And they will come packaged similar to this, which is the white. The white unicorn has been out on the market and stays out on the market. This one is not exclusive to us. However, all of these colors are. Let me put that one back. Now, why would you want a pigment-based ink? Because maybe you're not necessarily doing a dark color. Maybe black isn't a color you go to. Well, I think that's the place we're going to go to next. And I'm going to put my dye-based inks away because I'm not going to need them anymore. And I can put these over to the side. So I think the place we're going to go to next is perhaps a colored piece of paper. And this is a double-sided sheet of paper. You may have scraps of this type of paper absolutely everywhere, where you've got a double-sided piece of paper, whether it's a printed on the front and a plain on the back. But sometimes you're left with quite a bit of this and you just cannot bear to throw it away. I get you. I hear you. I feel you. At the same time, you want to do a beautiful embellishment for your page or a card or something for your mixed media or altered art, but you don't want to color. You need something that maybe is tone on tone, or something that isn't going to take you a tremendous amount of time, but you don't want it to be plain. You want it to have a little pizzazz. And that's where pulling out some of your paper out of your stash is a big help. Pulling out some of this and going through it. What am I going to do with it? Well, the first thing I'm going to do with it is I'm going to stamp on it. So we've got stamps from Stampendous. I think there's, let's see, where this set is this one right here. These are exclusive to Scrapbooking Made Simple. They won't be made available anywhere else until sometime in January of 2020. And what I like about these little Q sets, and that's what they're called, Q sets. I don't know why they're called Q sets, but that's what they are, is that they're a self-contained little embellishment or card. You've got the main image, you've got an additional image, and then often you've got a sentiment, sometimes two. So it's all there right for you, and they're at a really wonderful price. Stampendous stamps are a cling mount. So a cling mount rubber stamp. And cling mount means that it used to be on a wood mount. They used to sell these on a wood mount with the rubber. And now they've gotten rid of that wood, reduced the price by 30%, added a cushiony, oh, I had a hard time with that word, a cushiony foam to it that will cling to an acrylic block, allowing you to use the stamp again and again and again and again and again. So I think I'm going to play with this one first, actually, since I've got it out. And I'm going to bring over my squishy pad, and I'm going to bring over a block. This is an acrylic block. If once you have a nice set of these, you never have to buy it again. Acrylic blocks come in many different shapes and sizes. And if you really don't want to buy your own set of acrylic blocks, you absolutely can use a plate to your die cutting machine, one of the clear plates or a cutting pad, because you just need something for the stamp to cling to. That's all you need, is something for that stamp to cling to so it doesn't fall off, giving you the option and the availability to stamp with it. And again, it'll come on and off and off and on. And so you can use it again and again and again. You have to view blocks and stamps as tools. They're not an embellishment where you take a pretty flower and you put it on your card and then you never get to use that flower again. Stamps and blocks are tools that you can go back to again and again and again, year after year after year, because if you take care of them, they never go bad. And the easiest way to take care of a stamp like this is with a baby wipe to wipe it off when you're done, or a very mild dishwashing detergent like Dawn or Palmolive, and you just wipe it down and it's going to be fine. If for any reason it stops clinging, you put it on there and it just pops right off. You put it on there and it just pops right off. I'm making it pop off. What that usually means is that your finger oils are too much on the cling or too much on the block, or perhaps you've got glitter or embossing powder back here. Again, just wash the block, wash your stamp, and let it all air dry, and the next thing you know, you're back to being in business. Now I'm going to take my paper here and I'm just going to cut it in half. And I'm going to use my pink Hero Arts pigment-based ink, and I'm going to ink it up. You'll notice that a pigment-based ink tends to be very juicy. And you can also see exactly where it is on your stamp. So I've got my gush. My gush pad is important. A gush pad helps you stamp. If you're not a great stamper and you're stamping on a hard surface, chances are you're not making good contact between the stamp and the paper. A gush pad lets you do that. It just gives you the opportunity to kind of sink it on in. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give a press. I'm going to go A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to do chest compressions, but I want to give good all over pressure and then pull up. Oh, lovely. And there's my image. Now, I would not be able to get this image with a pink dye-based ink. That dye would just absorb right in. It would have to be a darker color than what this is, than what my paper is, so that my paper does not absorb the color. It'll sink in and dry fast, but the black or a darker paper will take the pigment or the color in the ink and it just absorbs it and it just disappears. So very, very nice. It looks great, right? And I could move on. I could stamp. How about we stamp? I'm going to wipe this one down. So just a baby wipe. Take my pink off. I should have had some paper towels here, but I don't, so shh. I'm wiping it on my jeans. Poof, all better. Let's grab the blue. Oh, and I'm going to cut this in half just. Okay, so let's grab the light blue and let's ink it up. And let's go 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. Let's see how I did. And up. Oh, very nice. And again. So you can see it's a little wet because you can see the reflection. It's kind of shiny. But what if we like that reflection? What if we like it to be a little shinier? Remember when I said it's kind of handy that these don't dry right away? That's because you can then take and put embossing powder over the top of them. Let's see if this one's still wet enough, my pink. And I think I'm going to grab maybe this pink embossing powder. This is the Floral Garden collection of embossing powders from Stampendous. I'll show it to you in just a minute. I'm just going to take it and pour it right on over. And if my ink is still wet enough, it's going to stick to that ink. That powder is going to stick to that ink. I'll just make a little funnel. Perfect. So now I've got embossing powder on there. Perfect. I'm going to take the rest of my embossing powder and just put it right back into my little jar because you use very little. Now what makes this embossing powder a little unique from Stampendous? Well, each color is not a single color. Each color is made up of blends to give kind of almost a watercolory look to them. And I think the easiest one to see, or one of the easier ones to see, is maybe the dark, the blue and the green. Can you see in there how there's more than one color of blue? You've got dark and light mixed in together to give a variance of color to your image. Woo! Okay, well, I will be right back. Oh, can I reach it? Can I reach it? I did. All right, so you can see the different colors in there. And that's what makes these embossing powders a little different. They're not just a straight color. Stampendous Fran has made specialized mixes. And I'm going to put the blue on this one. Gosh, but I think I might do I want the light blue, the dark blue? I don't know, let's try the light blue maybe? So I'm going to just dump it on. Now if that pigment ink is still wet, that embossing powder is going to cling right to it. Normally we use a Versamark, but if you've got a pigment-based ink, look at that. You can use a pigment-based ink also to heat emboss. All right, so I'm going to just dump this right back on in. And you use very little embossing powder. The floral kit has got everything you would need for pretty flowers. No question about that. Comes with little scoopies, but the floral kit has got beautiful colors for doing beautiful flowers. And this is how it's sold in this cute little kit. They also have the colors now in full size. This is the size of the bottle, open stock. So if you look at this and you say, well, I really love the blue that she used, and I really love the red, and I really love the yellow, but the rest of them not so much. Now you can get them in the open stock and just buy the colors that you want. If you love them all, and want to play with all of them, but then you're worried, well, I use the greens more than anything because I'm doing leaves. And then you're out of the green. Do you have to buy the whole kit over again? No, now you just buy the bottle of green and you're good to go. So that's a really nice feature from Stampendous that they do that. You're not stuck buying a whole new kit again. Now I've got these two, and I think I'm going to set this one off to the side just for right now, and I'm going to play with this one. I had a comment a couple weeks ago about heat embossing, and that that I should probably not think that everybody, or I should assume that everybody knows how to heat emboss, and that I should just not show it anymore because it's kind of, I don't know, wasting your time, I guess. So I'm going to tell you, if you know how to heat emboss, there's a fast forward button down at the bottom, and you will not hurt my feelings if you fast forward, but I can't assume that everybody is an established crafter. I have to think that you out there were just like me at one time and didn't ever know anything about most of this and were just excited to learn. So I'm going to show heat embossing just quickly so they can see what happens when you take the powder that I just used and stamp and put the powder down, because right now, you know what, I'm going to do it one more time super quick. Right now, where's my blue? I think it would be terrible to make an assumption that everybody knows everything, because I'll tell you right now, I don't know everything, and I'm always learning something new, and it was just a comment like, almost thinking that I was thinking that you all were just not competent, and that's not it at all. I just want you to be, confident, and I guess that's the difference. All right, so if I stamp here, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, and I'm good to go. Perfect. Put that over there. Let's bring my blue back, and you can see the difference. How do you know that there's blue embossing powder on this one? Well, look at this one. Totally different. And again, we're not using a Versamark. So if you've never done heat embossing before and you don't want to buy a Versamark, which is a embossing pad and a medium to do this, it's a clear, you can certainly get any pigment-based ink, and that will allow you to also heat emboss. So I'm putting my powder over the top, kind of moving it left to right and letting it walk itself on down. Dumping it off, giving a nice flick. I will tell you, I shouldn't tell you this, but that's what my dad used to do, only with this finger. If I wasn't paying attention every now and then, I'd get a little thump on my head. I'm sure with as much love as possible, but definitely a little thump on my head. Put my embossing powder back, put my lid on so I don't spill, because I know me. And now I've got 2 of them. Awesome. Let's take it and let's heat. All right, so I'm going to bring over my heat tool, and that's what this is. This is a heat tool. It is not a blow dryer. You cannot blow dry your hair with this. This is by Ranger. It gets very hot. You will singe your hair. At the same time, you cannot take a blow dryer here. It will never get hot enough. Now, if you have a cylinder heat tool, this is going to turn from a powder to a solid a little bit faster than what it will take with the Ranger tool. The nice thing about the Ranger tool is that you never burn anything. It just doesn't burn, and I can get as close as I want to that paper without singeing my paper. So for those of you who are new to embossing, you may want to try the Ranger tool first over a cylinder-based tool, as a cylinder-based tool will get very hot very quickly. You'll also see that I'm not going all over. I'm staying in one place. I don't want to do too much because I want to be able to. I'm staying in one place, and I'm letting it heat until that powder melts into a solid. And it will melt into a solid. And as I see that happening, then I slowly move my heat tool over so it continues to melt until I'm all the way done. Now, I don't know if you can see, on this side it's a little bit brighter, and on this side it's a little dull. Over here, that powder has melted and it's now become a solid, and it's raised. You can hear it. It's raised up like a formal embossing that you would see on one of those really lovely invitations that you get for a wedding or something like that. Over here, it hasn't yet fully set, and I'm able to wipe away some of that powder because I didn't add enough heat for that powder to turn into a solid. So I've wiped away that powder. And that is what heat embossing does. It takes that powder and it makes it into a textural, high gloss finish that is just absolutely lovely. All right, let me finish. Let me do this one really quickly just so I have one that's completed. And I'm just gonna let it sit there. And as I see it turn, and you can see it turn, it kind of brightens up and it solidifies. As I see it turn, I'm going to move my heat tool back and forth over it. Again, not like this. And the reason why I don't do this is because it requires that heat to melt. And if I add heat and then I take heat away and then I add heat and then I take heat away, every time I take the heat away, it starts to cool down. And I want to just apply that heat until it turns. And I'm just going to walk it around. It's a quiet tool, which is nice. Some of the cylinders are a little bit louder, but if you are comfortable with a cylinder, then you go for it. Okay. So I think I'm just checking to see if I can see any places where it hasn't turned yet. I'm just trying to get a little bit of a reflection off of everything so I can see if it's got that beautiful gloss sheen to it. And if it does, that means that it has turned in from the powder into the solid. And you can see, I can take my finger all over it and nothing's moving. That's how quickly it dries. Now, I did this just on blue paper, and I'm going to trim it on down. I'm going to trim it on down. I think that's good. Okay, close enough? I'll know when I see it against. So I just took some old basic blue paper that I had, and now I can take something a little bit brighter and a little bit happier. And let's pop this on out. So again, how much paper do you have in your stash where you've just got little snippets of this and little snippets of that, but you can't bring yourself to throw it away? Okay, I think I'm gonna tape it down super quick. So I'm using some Stacy tape, which is a double-sided adhesive, a little bit longer, a little bit stronger, and a little bit less money than most of those out on the market. I also understand that my liner is a little easier to use because it's a little thicker, so you can get it off. Stacy tape holds everything from paper to metal to beads to glitter to fabric. It just acetate, vellum. Even in the vellum, you can't see the tape behind the vellum, so it basically disappears. Peel those off, and I'm gonna put this right there. I want to stand up so bad to center this. All right, now I can trim down just a little bit more. All right, there we go. Now I didn't color this at all. Let's pretend this is my card base. I haven't colored this at all. I didn't go in there with any kind of pen or marker or pencil. I just used my embossing powder to do the trick. And then because you've got that, is this the one I used? Oh, yes, this is the one I used. Because you've got the pigment-based ink, I have an opportunity to use the sentiment on dark paper. So I could pull over another block, a little bit smaller. I've got my sentiment on there. I used the blue. I'm using blue, so I'm going to grab the Hero Arts blue pigment ink, and I'm going to ink it up. And I'm going to stamp. One, two, three, A, B, C. Okay, I can read that. I can stamp again if I want. It's a brand new stamp, so let's see if I stamp a second time if I get even a better image. Let's come over here and go A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, and up. Oh yeah, even a better image. So I've got two stamps where that ink is sitting on top of the paper. If I were to take my Memento ink and ink it up and stamp 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, you'd have a hard time reading that because that ink is seeping into the paper. Let's see if I take the Hero Arts dye-based ink and do the same thing. Let's wipe it down. And let's put some of that on here. Nice and juicy. And let's go right next to it. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. And again, harder to read than a pigment-based ink because the ink stays on top. Now I'm able to take and trim this right on out. Even miracles take a little time. All right, let's just pop that guy right on out. And bring over our oh, that looks good. Bring over our blue paper and make the coordinating sentiment. A little bit of Stacy tape. And down it goes. And then let's just trim it on out. Little too much trim on that side. All right, but you get the gist. So now I have made my, I'm gonna put this over here, put that there. I've now made my main piece and my coordinating sentiment, all out of pigment-based ink. And I could throw embossing powder on top of this, but maybe I don't want to. Again, the nice thing about a pigment-based ink is that it sits on top. I could, if I wanted to, even take my pigment-based ink with a dauber and maybe just kind of distress some of the edges a little bit. So a dye-based ink that you use to distress your edges is going to blend away. You need it to sit more on top. And just distress my edges a little bit. Had you thought about using a pigment-based ink as a distress edged? You can if you're using a darker paper. Up to you. What do you want to do? You have options. Because remember, the pigment-based ink will also go on white paper, but it also goes on dark paper. And I didn't use anything but some basic scrap paper that I had to make something that would be beautiful. Well, that's what we did here. Beautiful. Without any coloring at all. You can do this, honest. This is not hard at all. No coloring involved, no Copics, no watercolor pencils, just a really beautiful image using things that you may already have. All right, so I'm going to put that aside and I'm going to bring back this one. I'm going to bring back this one and we're going to heat it and see what color it comes out to. And you know, I think I'm going to do one more and I'll heat them both at the same time and then we'll decide which one we like better. So I'm not even going to, should I clean it? Okay, I will. I'm going to clean that off super fast. And don't tell anybody. I'm going to wipe it on my pants because I don't have any paper towels up there. Shh, looks fine, right? And I'm going to grab the pink ink. Just because I'm doing it in pink, I don't have to use the pink ink if I don't want to. I could have used the blue because when I put that embossing powder over the top of it, it's going to cover what ink I use. But as long as I've got it and I'm using pink, I might as well stick with pink. So let's give a press. One, two, three, A, B, C. Let's hope that I got a good connection there. Oh, yes. Okay. Woohoo. And this time I'm going to use the really almost, it's kind of got a little pink into it, but it's got a little bit of ivory going on in it. Let's pull my little, well, let me put this on here first. Dump, dump, dump. Because you're going to end up putting 99.9% of it back. Kind of let it walk on down. Give a good little thump, thump, thump. Just like my dad used to do. And then it was, as he said, it was just to get my attention. My dad would also, we would go to the grocery store and he would take like, oh, I don't know, a loaf of bread or a whole chicken. And if you weren't paying attention, he'd throw it at you and say, think fast. Yeah, sometimes we thought fast and sometimes I didn't. And once my dad hit a lady in the head with a loaf of bread saying, think fast. Yeah, that didn't go over so well, but I was very young and I just remember her looking at my dad like, what are you doing? Okay, so I'm going to heat these and I'm going to heat them both at the same time to see what we get. bring over my heat tool and watch my powder become a solid. And I'm not going to move it too fast. I'm going to give it the chance to do what it's supposed to do. I'm going to let it heat that powder into that solid and melt it. So I'm going to give it a chance to do what it's supposed to do. And being that this is the heated tool from Ranger, you can't burn it. And that's the lovely thing. It's really, really hard to burn your paper with this. Super, 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 super hard. Sometimes I might have to turn the angle. Okay, I think this one is about done, and this one's already started because it's been getting the heat, the residual heat. And you can really see it brighten up. Look at how bright that's getting. So the pink is a little more subdued, and the ivory is a little bit more wahoo. Just want to make sure I got every last area. All right. It'll take it just a second for it to cool down. It doesn't really have to dry. And oh, see, I don't think I got over there. Can you see how that's, oh, and right there, can you see how that's dull? So I didn't get that very well. I need to go back. And you can see where it's dull and it didn't get very bright and happy. And you can see I'm holding it, and it's not too hot because that heat is concentrated. Better. Now let's see if this one has a dull spot. See, this one's just way more subdued. Just make sure I got it all done. I think so. We're gonna go with it. Okay, so I've got the two different colors. One much brighter, one not as bright. So what do I want to do with these now? Well, I'm gonna take them and try something that maybe you've seen and maybe you haven't. And again, it's using the pigment-based ink. And I think maybe I'll do it with this one because it's a little brighter. Or maybe I'll do it with both of them. I'm going to grab a dauber. I'm going to trim this one down. So, zoop, sound effects required. Zoop. Okay, well, I'm going to be okay with that. I just wanted to get that little hole off the top. And let's trim this one down too, and I can leave this one just a little bit bigger. Okay, now I'm going to take the pink pigment ink again, and I'm going to use it again. And I'm going to use it with a dauber. You can use a dauber, you can use a cotton swab, not a Q-tip. That's what, a Q-tip. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to add this pigment everywhere except for where my embossing already is. So I'm going to go in there, and again, I'm going to use a little bit of the side of my dauber to get into the nooks and crannies. If you'd prefer to use a Q-tip, you can. I just really want to get that pigment ink everywhere except the flower that I've done. I want to stay, this time not inside the lines, I want to stay outside the lines. And I may get a little bit on my flower, but I can come back and fix that if I do. So I want to get it all over there. And you're thinking, what is she gonna do? Well, I want to give you options, and this is a really pretty option that doesn't require anything more than what we have already done, heat embossing. And heat embossing is different than dry embossing. Dry embossing would be with an embossing folder. Heat embossing is using the embossing tool like I've been doing. So I've got that ink everywhere except for the center of my flower. Everywhere but the center of my flower. Now, I'm going to take clear embossing powder. And I'm using a detailed clear embossing powder from Stampendous. There's a reason I'm using a detailed. Some people would maybe want to use an ultra thick embossing powder. An ultra thick embossing powder, the granules of the embossing powder are bigger. They're much bigger. A detailed embossing powder is as fine of as embossing powder as you can get. And that's what I want, because I want to keep the embossing powder out of the center of my flower. I don't want it to even get close to where if it melts, it would seep into it. And ultra thick embossing powder, because the grains of the embossing powder are so big, the granules are so big, even if it's not in your flower, as it melts, it might spread into your flower. So there I go. Now anywhere I got a little bit of embossing powder where I don't want it, I'm just gonna flick it right on out. Anywhere I've got a little bit of embossing powder inside my flower, I'm just gonna flick it on out. Okay, now I'm gonna take my clear embossing powder and I'm gonna put it away. Right back into my tub. Put my lid on it because I know myself. And bring over my heat tool. And I'm going to heat away. And you will be able to see it change. It is a dramatic change. There's no hiding it. As it heats up, that clear embossing powder starts to melt, taking the paper almost back to the original color it was. But I had some little swirls and stuff going around because I wanted to have a little bit of texture and a little bit of movement. Can you see it heating and literally changing? From what was almost a milky coating of embossing powder to something that has completely changed back into what looked like the original paper. And again, I'm not melting the original embossing. Okay, I'm going to give that just a second to dry. And then I'm going to pick it up. And now you can see it's got almost a glassy finish, except for inside where it's got the matte finish. Now you may see this one's actually pretty good. I have to say I did a pretty good job. But you may see a couple dots and bubbles and a little bit of texture in there. And you may want it to even have a more glassy finish, a smoother finish. And how would you do that? That's where most people would say, well, if you had used the ultra thick embossing powder, you could have done it in one heat. But again, that ultra thick embossing powder, as it melts, it spreads. And I wanted to be absolutely positive that that embossing powder did not go anywhere inside my flower, giving me glossy on the outside of my flower and a beautiful matte finish on the inside. But if I wanted to add more embossing powder to give even a glossier look, you're just going to take your ink and you're going to do it one more time. And now the embossing, or the ink, the pigment ink, is going to spread super easy because it's on a gloss finish. Super easy. And you don't need that much. I just need to get it on there so that it is wet enough for my embossing powder to stick to. So you don't need a ton, and you just need to spread it on around. And then I can come back and I can add another coat of embossing powder. And I could add coat after coat after coat and build up the thickness until I am happy. I'm usually content with 2 coats if I'm really trying to get something super shiny. And again, I'm not big on a ultra thick because the granules are just too chunky for me. Okay, so I've added another coat of pigment-based ink. Bring over my clear embossing powder. Go dump, 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 dump. And where it's wet, it will hold. And where it's not wet, it will not. Okay, you can see it's kind of got that milky look to it again. Put my embossing powder right back in. So you can imagine at this rate, 1 jar lasts you a really long time, and you may already have detailed clear embossing powder. Let's heat it again. And again, it's a dramatic turn. Hoping that you can see that. Well, my thing's in the way. There we go. Oh, let me get it going. And now my embossing powder is even thicker than it was. And I'm just letting it go from a powder to a solid. And it's just melting into each other. Get it all melted. Give it a second to dry, or to cool actually. And now I have got even a smoother, glassier finish than I had before. And then I can take whatever I want. I can take the original paper that I used. I can take, Oh, I can take a softer pink to matte. I can take a polka dotty pink to match, but you can see the difference by adding that embossing powder to the outside. It makes that center image just pop right off the page. And you didn't add anything to it except for some pigment-based ink and embossing powder to heat. This is an easy technique to give something a little pizzazz, a little wow, a little, how did you do that without taking glossy accents and trying to paint it on? Yes, look at how stunning that is. Really, they're just beautiful. I did this one earlier. Look at how gorgeous that looks. And after you've matted it, and it really can be matted on anything, after you matte it, they just pop. You can even matte it. Look at how beautiful it looks on the black. Oh yeah, that looks really good. Wait. Wait a minute. Stop right there, hold the presses. I'm gonna have to go back and trim that out, but let me just put that down super quick because that looks really, really good. Some Stacy tape. You would probably use more than this. I just want to get it down for you so you can see. Pull up. Okay, now let's trim it better so it doesn't look so willy wonky. I could tell that was a bad cut when I did it. Oh, that one too. That's what happens when you're trying to freehand at, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night. Some of you are saying, hey, that's when I'm just getting into the swing of things crafting. Look at how pretty is that? Oh my gosh. And all we did was emboss on plain paper. Plain paper. You have options when you're using a pigment-based ink. You have lots of options because it works on your standard white paper, but it also then gives you the opportunity to emboss with it or stamp on a darker piece of paper and still have the stamp as a visible image. So pretty. So easy to do. I don't know, they just make my heart happy. How about you? This one we haven't done anything with yet. Just make my heart happy, and I just think that that is absolutely yummy. But I like this one too. Two different looks, same stamp. Which one makes your heart happy? So, remember, when you are talking about inks, your dye-based ink is your most prevalent in the industry. And that's what most people stamp with or color with. I mean, a dye-based ink is around lots of different manufacturers. I mean, so many different manufacturers of dye-based ink, I couldn't even name them all. Pigment-based ink, though, is a more specialized ink, and there's a reason for it. One, it allows you to stamp on dark paper. Two, it gives you the opportunity to use it as an embossing medium and throw some embossing powder over the top. It also allows you to go in there and do that detail to where you've got a matte center and a glossy edge, and nobody knows how you did it. And I wouldn't tell them. I'd just go, huh, thank you. It's a pow moment. It really is when you put that on a card or a gift bag, or part of your 12 by 12 layout, and they just see that and they're like, wow, how did you do that? Well, now you've got the technique. And being that your pigment-based ink is able to go all the way around and edge a dark piece of paper that you can't necessarily do with, let's say, a Tim Holtz Distress ink, because that is a dye-based ink and the color would just absorb right on into the blue. You would have to use something darker than the blue for you to be able to see that color. But I wanted to use that soft blue to add a little bit of distress to that. And a pigment-based ink will allow you to do that. Then you've got the Stampendous stamps that give you kind of everything you need in one stamp, from the main image to a saying to a little decor stamp to go with it to finish things out. And when you pair that with their wonderful floral garden embossing, it's all the pretty colors. This is my favorite kit because I like the kit that's also that has the basics in it, but this one's pretty because it allows you to do just about anything you want to do. And those colors are not solids. They're blends that give you highs and lows and richness and tone and depth. And so you can't get that with just a solid blue or a solid green. You can only get that when the manufacturer has taken the time to make a blend. And then your clear embossing powder, which you may already have. I like the detail because, again, I want to keep that embossing powder very contained. I want to make sure that it doesn't spill over into my image. And I would rather emboss twice and make sure my center image is completely clean than emboss with ultra thick and have it bleed into my image. I'm trying to stay away from that. And I didn't use Versamark at all today. All I used was pigment-based inks. So I hope that there was something in there that maybe you didn't know before. I'm gonna wipe my table down. I'm gonna say, oh my goodness gracious, it is 9:30. I think this might be one of the latest YouTubes I've ever tried to tape. But let me show you the stamps from Stampendous. Again, these are exclusive to Scrapbooking Made Simple. You're not going to be able to find them anywhere else. And they're so pretty. You've got the daisies, you've got life is, what has she got? Life is the flower, love is the honey. Oh, and a little bee. Rain will make the flowers grow. Oh, that's one of my favorite songs from Les Mis, which was one of my mom's favorite musicals. Yes, Eponine. That was the dying song from Eponine. Anyway, if you haven't seen Les Mis, go see it. It's really good. Listen to the music first, though. So we've got beautiful little set, and then here, enjoy today is the sentiment. So they're all self-contained, ready to go, ready to make embellishments, ready to make cards, ready to use on your mixed media or your altered art. And for $8.99, and then they'll be on a YouTube Yummy sale. You really can't go wrong. Love, love, love. So let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets that Fran has done for us exclusively through January. Yay! Then we have her embossing powder in the full kit, or if you just like certain colors, we have it now in open stock for you. I promised open stock was coming, and it did. We've got the clear embossing powder, detailed clear. If you already have it, or if you've got a local store that carries it, go buy it from them. If your local store carries the embossing powder kit, go get it from them. Get what you can at your local independent mom and pop shop. go say hello, introduce yourself. And the things you can't get there, then come online and shop with us or whomever else you're going to shop with. But always, you know, local independent stores, we really want to stick together and keep us out there. So Hero Arts has 6 Pigment ink pads. You've got mint, you've got green, you've got peach, you've got yellow. Aren't they pretty? Reminds me of sherbet ice cream. I loved sherbet ice cream as a child. Well, I still love sherbet ice cream, actually. It's just fresh and cooling, and I love sherbet. My kids love sherbet too. Okay, so there are the 6 colors, and then there is the Hero Arts white, which is a pure white. And if you're having trouble finding a lovely white to stamp with, this will be the one you want. So I think we're doing an I Want It All of all 7 of them. And then if you just like 1 or 2, you absolutely can get them in open stock. It's entirely up to you what works best for you. And if you've got pigment-based inks already, well, wahoo kachoo, pull them out and get playing. Yes. All right. Now let's talk about samples, because I have got beautiful samples for you today. Okay, so I'm going to start, I guess I'm going to start here. So we've got a cute little Windorama, and that was the stamp that I was using today. And then if you have a Windorama, it folds flat. That's a die set by Stampendous. Easy to put together and folds flat. Oh, again, this is the one I was playing with today. And then look at how beautiful is this. And how soft and sweet is this? Isn't that lovely? Who wouldn't want to get that? And that's using my must-haves. Oh, that makes my heart happy. That's using my must-haves. And here we painted with the Yasutomo, so it's got a metallic finish to it. All done with the embossing powders from Stampendous. And then let's bring this pack on over. Here's one similar to what we did in the Make and Take. It's got a beautiful little embossing, and then it matches the paper. And then just using the secondary stamps, not even using the main stamp that comes in the set. And look at how beautiful is that. And again, they used my must-haves. Oh, my heart is happy. Thank you. Don't know if this was Doris or Claire, but thank you. How pretty. Oh, look at this. How gorgeous is that? Did I just say gorge? How gorgeous is that? You know, I'm going to be 51 in just a few days. I think I should be saying gorgeous and not gorge. Again, my must-have. Love that. So pretty, using all the stamps from Stampendous, using their embossing powder, using Hero Arts pigment-based inks. Just a little bit of fabulous. There's 6 different stamp sets that will make up the I Want It All. The girls just did an amazing job. Do I have to open this? Well, I guess I do. Okay, well here, let me hold it this way. Gosh, I hope they haven't been putting, they have, they need to tell, oh, somebody needs to tell me. Oh, see, sentiment on the inside. Oh, nobody told me. Sentiment on the inside. Oh, I'm not going back to look at all of these. No, no, no. Beautiful. Sentiment on the inside. Open it up. Sentiment on the inside. And again with my must-haves. Yeah, I'm not going back to check all of these. Okay. So pretty. Sentiment on the inside. I'm sure there's probably a little post-it note here that says, oh, Stacy, you need to go look and check the insides. Isn't that beautiful? Do we have one? Oh, there we go. Surprise! How lovely is that? So pretty. I don't know. Nope. Sorry. Oh my goodness gracious. Holy smokes, artichokes. Look at how beautiful is that. That just looks like watercoloring. And it's using the embossing powder. That's just gorgeous. Gorgeous. I don't know where I picked that up from. And then last but not least. All right, so there are all of our samples for YouTube number 315. I am going to tilt on up. I'm gonna tilt on back because, woo, that's a lot of me. Hello, a lot of Stacy. All right, you guys, so remember, if you've got a local independent mom and pop shop, go visit them. See if they've got the clear embossing powder. See if they've got the Stampendous floral kit. Go look and see what they have. And then buy what you can there, and what you can't, then go shop online. Now, the only place you're going to find those Hero Arts pigment-based inks and those Stampendous stamps is here at Scrapbooking Made Simple. So for that, you'll shop with us. For some of the other things, see if you can find them locally if you're fortunate enough to have a local retailer. Where do you find them? Here, scrapbookingmadesimple.com. Look under the YouTube Yummies category. That's scrapbookingmadesimple.com. Or come visit us in our retail store, because yes, we actually have a physical location where you can come in and shop, 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 or just get inspired, or say hello. It's all good. We love to see you. All right, it's me, Stacy, Scrapbooking Made Simple. I will see you next week. And thanks again for all of your prayers and well wishes and positive energy going towards Mr. SMS Michael. It's a day at a time right now. Okay, everybody. Bye-bye.